Well, here we are, the day before the eclipse. Excited and wondering about what the experience will be like. And despite the regularity of the sun and the moon and the fact that NASA calculated this that astronomers have calculated this years ago, there is still a lot of uncertainty about what will happen tomorrow when you think about it. I mean, at the moment, a morning like this, what will the weather be like? How many people are coming to town? How bad will the traffic be? And most importantly, can I get milk and bread at the grocery store? And yet, we've been told to prepare ourselves for a wondrous and eerie experience. The eclipse is so foreign to our normal experience that even the birds will apparently stop singing. For a period, we will be in darkness, and there's nothing we can do about it. So while we're kind of excited and looking forward to the darkness, it's interesting today, the disciples in today's reading are hiding in a different kind of shadow. We find them huddled in fear in a locked room. Why are they afraid? Well, as often happens after a difficult situation, there is a lot going on, a whole swirl of anxious thoughts. What if the chief priests or the Romans start looking for Jesus' followers? What if we are recognized? But also, they're mixing in their shame and guilt. We denied Jesus. What have we done? We fled him in his hour of need. We failed our teacher. Having denied Jesus and feeling outcast from Jewish circles, they are filled with uncertainty about what to do next. And in the immediacy of this crisis, it doesn't feel like there's a next step. So they find themselves in a room locked away from the world. They are caught up in fear and dread, literally going moment to moment in a fight or flight response. They are so stressed. Everything they know has been eclipsed by the darkness of this new reality of grief and fear and uncertainty. And unlike our modern eclipse viewing, they have no idea when the darkness will end. So, Jesus appears. And initially, Jesus' appearance is more terrifying than comforting to these disciples. I mean, they are huddled together in a locked room debating what to do next when suddenly they turn around and find Jesus. You think about that. They weren't looking for a resurrection, and the sudden presence of Jesus probably triggered more horror than relief on first sight, both at his resurrection, oh my goodness, and oh, hi. Jesus' first words thus are, "Peace be with you." He first moves to calm the disciples, recognizing their anxiety and fear. "Peace be with you." With these words, Jesus soothes both their fear and their guilt. There will be no admonition. Only after they recover from this initial shock does Jesus then show the disciples his wounds. Yes, he shows all the disciples. Often we get so focused on Thomas's reaction that we miss what Jesus actually does in the reading. Poor Thomas has gotten an unfair reputation over the centuries, leaving many to feel uncomfortable about their own doubts. No one seems to notice that the other disciples also received proof of Jesus' resurrection in the passage. It's It's interesting that Jesus arrives still carrying the wounds of his crucifixion. These wounds offer a connection point, a reminder of Jesus' initial humanity and mortality. At this moment, when Jesus is present in his most divine form, there are still reminders of his humanity. In solidarity with our human experience, Jesus carries the scars of his experience. So, more than just proof of the resurrection, Jesus' wounds offer a witness to his lived experience. And through them, he invites us to recognize that our own scars are reminders of resurrection in our lives. When it seems like we are experiencing pain that no one else can understand, Jesus' wounds remind us that others have walked this path too. And our scars, whether emotional or physical, remind us of the difficult times that we have overcome. Our scars are evidence of healing, reminders of our strength and resilience. When we can't see the end of the tunnel, scars can serve as reminders that there is resurrection, even in the darkest of days. And the one who walks with us, even when we think we're alone, truly knows our pain and sorrows. There are simply times in life when our lives are eclipsed by events that leave us in darkness. We might be called to make a difficult decision, struggle with mental health issues, or like the disciples, be overwhelmed with grief and fear. Or we might be facing injustice, prejudice, or other uncontrollable external stressors. It is part of the human condition, just part of being human, to move through periods of difficulty and uncertainty. And while I love to use light as a metaphor for God's love, there is a risk in this metaphor. Every metaphor has its limits. And sometimes we so associate God with the light that we come to believe that we are alone in the darkness. So I hope you know that God is present even when we don't see the end of the darkness. God was in the chaos of creation before the light was created, and God created both the light and the dark. So when we seek God, we will find God's presence even in our darkest times. We cannot always avoid times of uncertainty and darkness, but we might find that these circumstances offer time for transformation of our hearts. Often the seeds of resurrection in our lives are planted in the dark soil of difficult times. Sometimes when Jesus finds us, maybe in our own locked room of despair, his appearance can change the direction of our lives. Though they were locked away and unreachable, Jesus came to the disciples. Though they felt like the world had ended, Jesus brought them the promise of true life through his resurrection. Though they began in darkness and uncertainty, Jesus gave the disciples a mission, sending them back out into the world with a purpose. So there will be times when our lives will be eclipsed by difficult circumstances. always remember, we have survived tough times in the past, and our scars are the proof of resurrection in our lives. God is not deterred by darkness and despair. Jesus comes to us, as he did to the disciples, against all expectation, offering a message of peace, carrying the wounds of his humanity, and sharing the eternal promise of his resurrection.